Webcasting introduction before we begin. This meeting is to be webcast. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of subsequent repeated viewing with copies of the recording made available for those who request it. By being present at this meeting, it's likely that the recording cameras will capture your image and this will result in your image becoming part of the broadcast. You should be aware that this may infringe your human and data protection rights. If you have any concerns, then please speak to the webcasting officer. Please can I also remind members to activate their microphones before speaking. Next item is apologies for absence. Jackie?
Yes, Chairman. Apologies from Councillor Avey.
Thank you. And we don't have any substitute members this evening. The minutes from the last meeting, which we agreed at Cabinet last night, is everyone happy with the minutes from the 13th of December? Councillor Wixley?
Yeah, I've got no complaints about the minutes. I've just got a query on sort of technical point. I don't know if I could ask that.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, well, it's on the top of page 7, the first paragraph, where it says phase 4, and the reference to charging points being installed, but or they're not being installed under phase 4.1 rather. But then it says the infrastructure for these has been included. Does that mean that it would be a fairly easy case to install charging points? The cabling of the right sort of capacity is there. Is it just a question that charging points could be installed at a later date?
Thank you, Councillor Wixley. I believe that is the case, but I'll pass on to Rochelle.
Yep, that is the case. So it makes it easier for them to be installed at a later date if they wish.
Thank you. And I accidentally missed item 4, which is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations this evening? Nope, that's good. So on to the first substantive item of the agenda, which is Council Housebuilding Progress Report. And I'll pass over to Rochelle to present. Thank you.
Evening all. Just a few updates since the report was issued. So on page 10, phase 4, where it's referencing 4.1 and it's referencing the dates. We've got Chester Road, which is written as the 9th of March. That's now moved to the 29th of March, along with Chester Road, which has also moved to the 29th of March. This is just due to BT fibre installation delays, so they haven't been able to complete that, and that's going to have a knock-on effect on our handover. Moving on to page 11, we have Hornbeam Close, which is coming in a day early on the 28th of March, and Beachfield Walk is delayed to the 23rd of March, and that's due to supply shortages for the roof works, so that's caused a delay there. And no further updates since the report was issued.
Thank you. I'll try and make this as brief as possible. I did follow up on the still awaiting determination by planning on the executive summary bit at the top there. Apparently that's an SAC issue, and I spoke to Nigel Richardson earlier on. There is also a question I had around on page 10. We've got 56, 56, 56, 53, 53, 53, but it doesn't tell me what it means. What does it mean?
That's actually...
Sorry.
It references the build period, but in actual fact, some of those will desperately be over because the handover dates have slipped so much, but it references the week. So at the top, you've got SOS, start on site, that goes down, then weeks down, and then handover date down.
Yep.
Thanks for that update, Rochelle. Under Queensway, Ongar, section 5, I think it is, I just wanted to say thank you very much. I visited that site and I think it's a very good development, very good use of the land. It's nice to see small bungalows being built, and I believe they've all been handed over now and hopefully they'll be fitted out soon. Great to see under 4.2, phase 4.2, the 22 units are actually now coming on stream. And my final point, I think, was 4.4, number 19, Ladyfields, and that total of 24 units. It also references the planning committee date not being set on there. I spoke with Nigel again on that one, and apparently that's the SAC issue that needs sorting out. Apart from that, very pleased with the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bedford. Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Chairman. A quick question regarding the Clerk of Works, because I know that there's been a delay on one of the sites because of the retirement of the Clerk of Works. So, when we, for a phase or for blocks of works that are going to take place, do we not just appoint one Clerk of Works to oversee all of the different sites, or do we tender that on a site-by-site basis?
KPA, who were on all of phase 4, were covering everything, so 4.1, 4.2, and due to do 4.3, but he retired. So with our framework as we had it, there was only one Clerk of Works option on there, which kind of went back to me going outside of the framework to be able to do that. So we have now got someone who's taken up that place, I suppose, and procurement are preparing the contract for that as we speak.
Thank you. Do you want to come back?
Yeah, please. So just to clarify, it doesn't matter who the actual contractor is. The Clerk of Work is assigned for all jobs.
Yeah.
Thanks. Do you want to come back one more time?
Yeah, no, I had some additional questions. Sorry, just looking at on report number 29 on page 5. You know the variances that are being shown from the initial build to latest pre-tender estimates, and then the variance, etc. When we started these projects, we were always trying to learn from previous phases to try and eradicate the potential for variances. Now, I appreciate that there's been supply chain issues which may have influenced them, but I'm presuming that the supply chain hasn't affected the variance as much as what's being shown. What are the other reasons for the discrepancies?
I think we've raised it before, and it's been a case of contamination, issues with foundations and the piling and what choices have been made there. So I think you're probably going to see it repeats itself in the sense that because the schemes are ongoing, you're seeing the same thing, but it's not any different, and it's not both 4.1 and 4.2 overall as a package contract are within their contingency. So on individual schemes there have been some overspends, but we've been able to cover those with our contingencies and our Section 106 contributions, and like you say, learning from those experiences for Phase 5.
Thank you. I'm going to let Councillor Phillip come in and I'll come back to you. Councillor Phillip.
Yeah, just a question on page 12 on 4.3. Pentlow Way shows a start on site in March 22 and a handover of June 22. Are we really saying it's finished 4 months afterwards?
Apologies, that's an error. That should be 23.
Thank you. Councillor Wixley.
Yes, thank you. I've got 3 questions, if that's possible. The first one is on page 9, and the reference to receiving a green grade. I just wonder if the officer could explain what that is. It sounds impressive, but it'd be nice to know a bit more about it. That's my first question, if you want to deal with them one at a time.
So that is a grade awarded by Homes England. So we've got Homes England grant funding on all of the Phase 4.2 projects, and sometimes randomly they select a particular scheme to be audited, and we were selected for Kirby Close. They do a review basically of all of our documentation. They go out sometimes on site to visit and speak with our contractors, our EA, and from the audit, it was our first audit that Epping have ever done, and it was awarded a green grade, so it is definitely a good thing.
So presumably that sort of is that sort of focused on the environmental aspects, like insulation and stuff like that?
No, it doesn't reference it in that aspect. It's looking at have we been compliant with meeting the Homes England grant funding requirements. So it's various things around, are we keeping all of our, it's largely paperwork, so are we keeping all of our documents in order? Are we making the right choices for the development site, and are we delivering it within what's been agreed, basically?
Thank you. Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, the second point is reference to phase 5. I just wonder if the office has got any idea of when phase 5 will actually progress towards planning applications.
So we're at the moment out to consultation with residents, councillors. I'm going to be soon getting in touch with the parish and town councils regarding some of the proposals. There aren't any confirmed dates yet for them to go into planning, because there's still the consultation and design elements to go following the consultations. But I would estimate that we probably would know where we are in sort of 3 to 4 months' time, where we can go with planning.
Thank you. Councillor Patel, do you want to come back?
Thank you for allowing me to come back. I noted on some of the projects that delays have taken place due to highways and due to utility companies. When we're doing the project forecast and setting the call off periods for getting the relevant third parties involved, is this something that we perhaps, if there are delays occurring now for whatever reason, is this something that perhaps we need to look at for phase 5 and bringing them forward if possible, so that it doesn't add to delays in the future? Sorry.
It's a difficult one to manage, because we don't have control, obviously, over their sort of diaries, and in some instances we've been given dates and at the very last minute they've cancelled. I think this particular period has been difficult for the utility companies because there's been such backlog, and I think they've struggled to be able to deal with the backlog, so it has caused an issue. The call-off periods are, each of them are different, and the contractors factor that into the programme, so they do get called off, and we do get dates, but they change sometimes last minute, and then we're kind of at their mercy as to when another date becomes available.
Thank you. Councillor Patel, do you want to come back? Are you okay?
I don't suppose there is a contingency for that, is there? Because as you say, you're in the hands of the third party.
Yeah, there isn't really much that we can do other than trying to, obviously, what tends to happen is there's sometimes back and forth on email, just trying to say, how important it is, we've got handover and this is going to delay it, and trying to get them to come in wherever possible. So it is just, I think, trying to keep that communication up with them as the programme moves along.
Thank you. Councillor Heath.
Thank you, Chairman. It's in relation to phase 5 and particularly Hornbeam A, because some of the residents have received notification of plans already, and I had hopes that we were going to be at least included in that first sending out. But it's really sort of a plea to say that these garages going is going to seriously affect a lot of the residents around there, particularly in Cascade Close. So I'd like to push the case to add into this whole equation, digging up the gardens or the grassy bit in front of those houses, to let those residents park on their forecourts and at least charge their electric cars when they get them. Because at the moment I've counted at least 12 cars that belong to Cascade Close in the garages, and it's going to be a nightmare. That was it.
Thank you, Richard. I don't know whether I should jump in first, because I am aware of the situation at Cascade Close, and myself and Councillor Patel did a site visit probably this time last year, and I'm aware, and I don't know if Rochelle knows full of details on this, but there's been a number of kind of legal conversations with the neighbours as to how they might be able to find a way forward, because it is proving to be difficult, but happy to take that offline. But I don't know if Rochelle wants to talk about the technical side of that a bit more.
So I guess there is legal things going on, so it's probably best not to comment here. But the consultation is for that purpose, to give residents the opportunity to feedback on why they may oppose to the proposals. And it isn't yet at a planning stage, it is at consultation. So this is the opportunity for them to say no and why not.
Thank you. Councillor Heath.
Thank you very much. That's good to know. Some of the houses were omitted from the list.
I've spoken to the officer who dealt with those, and they should be getting those by the end of the week. And I believe the actual allotment holders and people renting the garages will individually receive letters as well where they've been missed.
Thank you. And just a question for me in terms of, obviously we're using consultants in relation to the management reports. As we kind of scale up, which we are kind of over the next 5 years in particular, will we be looking at doing that in-house to kind of cut costs?
100%. We will be moving to doing more of that ourselves as the programme is growing. There is the capacity there to manage that as the team also goes with it, so that will be changed, yes.
Thank you. And just also in terms of the communication side, I know we've exchanged a couple of emails, but I need to come back to you on the last one. Obviously, we've had some really good completions. Are we looking to do some quick communications around what we are doing in terms of council house building?
So I've started doing a lot more on the intranet because there hasn't been that before. So there is that internally. Also, I've spoken to our comms team around what we're putting out around each time we have handover to talk about that basically, so that everyone gets to see what we are doing and what's actually coming out of this programme.
Yeah, I think the bungalow scheme is particularly exciting because it's a new type of property we've delivered and actually really good in the location, which I know Councillor Bedford will know better than anyone, has quite a large elderly population as well. Councillor Wixley, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, it was just another question I had on page 13, paragraph 22. There's reference to a number of sites which have been dropped since the review of phase 5, and it says these are attached within the report for reference, but I couldn't actually find that reference. I don't know if it's been missed off or I've missed it.
I think there is a list in the Phase 5 management report, but it's we're talking about Winters Way, that's been taken out of the programme recently. Miles Croft Way was in there previously, that was taken out of the programme. And I think there may be one other, but I think it may be in the Phase 5, but I'll confirm for you.
Thank you, sorry, Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, I think there is reference to Miles Croft Way. Actually on, I think it's, I did write it down, yeah, on page 83, but that appears to be, doesn't say that it's been withdrawn, it's sort of set aside, I think, for further investigation.
No, Miles Croft Way, so on page, it is page 83, and it's got the Winters Way there, Oakley Court, Barrington Close, Miles Croft Way, that isn't for further investigation, that was taken out of the programme permanently.
And does that apply to Oakley Court as well? Because that's actually in my ward, so I was wondering what that was about.
Oakley Court has been removed from the programme, yes. There are 2 properties in particular in the area that we were looking. They are going to be brought back into management so that they can be relet.
Thank you. And is everyone happy to note that report? Noted. Thank you, and goodbye, Councillor Phillips. Safe journey. The next item on the agenda is Phase 5 sites to be appropriated. Rochelle.
Thank you, Councillor Whitbread. Nothing further to add more than what the report says. As a part of the process, we have to appropriate the sites to show difference of use. In some cases, it may well be that if the sites don't go ahead for building, we are still reviewing our garage sites, and a lot of our garages are not fit for purpose in that they don't hold cars. So we're looking at creating, potentially in some areas, is extra spaces with electrical vehicle charging points, and that's what we're looking at for Winters Way at the moment. So that will be considered. So there will still be a change of use for the site. So it's a part of the process that we have to go through.
Thank you. And questions on this report? Councillor Bedford?
Yeah, just regarding that particular point there about recategorising some of the garage sites, if we pull the garages down and tidy up the sites and put charging points in, I think we have to be very careful because they'll probably be turned into like football play areas. If we've got charging points there, they're all going to get knocked over, beaten up and broken. So we need to think about hard landscaping to perhaps stop that. And by that I mean like creating parking bays with raised curb areas, that sort of thing, so that it discourages the football games, or we'll have residents complaining.
So we've been having a little sort of talk and discussion around ideas, and some of the things coming up are bollards that sort of lower into the ground and come up that can be operated by a fob system. Looking at, like you said, the landscaping, so improving some of the landscaping areas in and around where the garages are to improve those. So we will have, if that is the case and what we take forward, we will have plans and drawings of that to be able to again discuss those in a similar way.
Can I'll just come back quickly on that. It might be worth thinking about the original scheme that they did at Ongar, where they had the community orchard. So we convert, say, half of the car parking area into a community orchard at each of the garage sites. And we meet two targets then, planting trees and charging vehicles.
That's a good
Noted,
idea.
yeah, noted.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Yeah, I've got some questions because I'm being approached by residents, particularly in the case of Castile Road. A resident has tried to make contact with the council to ask some questions, and she'd left a message. I won't name the officers because they may not have got the call, because I know our phones don't always work as they should, but she left a message on the 25th of February and still waiting for a reply. I don't know, perhaps I can email the details through to you, Rochelle, and you can deal with it outside the meeting, or if this resident could perhaps contact you, if that would be helpful, I think that would be appreciated. So can I do that? Yeah, okay. We're just going over the page, on page 86. I think I should point out that Hornbeam Close Site A is not in Loughton, much as we would like it to be. It's actually in Buckersfield. Just point that out. And I think I can echo what Councillor Heap said earlier about parking stress, because I think that's going to be an issue with some of these sites in my ward that I represent. I think we've got to take that into account, because it is a sort of a quality of life issue if people are fighting over parking spaces. So although we're losing some of these parking areas because the garages are going, I would like to sort of be sure that, you know, we weren't just riding roughshod over people, and it's going to make life very difficult for our existing residents who've probably been residents in the district for a very long time and have hired garages for a very long time. So I think we do need to think about those people. So I'll just make that point, really.
Just to quickly come back, yes, absolutely send me the details over and I will have a look at it. There are, what was given was our housing development email address as responses to raised queries, and there has been a number that I have sent out to officers to pick up over the last few days, so it may well be that that's already within that, but by all means please do send me the information and I will pick it up. As you can imagine, because we're sending them out for all of the sites, there is a lot that's coming in, so it is just working through that at the moment. It's not that anyone's being ignored, it's just working through the list at the moment. And in regards to the other point raised, a lot of the sites are having parking surveys done, which will not just be looking at daytime but nighttime, which is probably when you expect to see the most of cars there. So we are taking into consideration that there is parking stress in a number of areas, and that all formulates part of our surveying before we even decide whether, you know, to want to take it forward to planning.
Thank you. And Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, again, I think I can highlight this in respect of the second paragraph from the bottom on page 86. This is where people have had or have got access to their properties from these parking sites, but are likely to lose it. And I understand that if they've got legal access, and reading this as I understand it, then they can still be paid compensation, and the council can still take that site. Could you sort of clarify the legal situation there?
In terms of whether they'll be able to claim compensation is the clarification, or whether it's more...
Well, I can imagine in some cases they would prefer to retain their access rather than have compensation. But my understanding of this is that when push comes to shove, then the legal situation is that they can't retain that access, even if apparently they've got legal access. That can be overridden, as I've understood it. And if that's the case, then they're entitled to compensation. But what I'm saying is, I think some of them prefer to retain their access and wouldn't be too concerned about the compensation. But obviously, if they can't do that, then I think they're worthy of getting the compensation.
So some instances, some have had no legal right over the accesses that they've had, and it's just gone on for a very long time. So when we've come to do the work to start on site, we've then gone through the legal process of severing that access. It isn't an ideal situation to have various access points off of some of the sites. It doesn't work in every case. So they are reviewed on a case-by-case basis rather than us having a blanket approach. So that's probably why there's a bit of difference in options there. But there is some cases where we have paid compensation out for the loss of the access, and it hasn't been given back. But that's why they've been compensated for it. Where we have been able to maintain an access, and in some cases it acts as a natural policing, we've allowed that to continue. It just depends on the site, because they're all different, and they all look very different, and where they're located makes a difference.
Thank you. Councillor Hoop.
Thank you. We did have an incident of this in Buckerstill, in one of the garage sites, where two residents lost their right of easement, is what they had, and it did translate into money. It was taken away, it can be taken away, that's the council's right to say on the land, but it does translate into money.
Thank you. Councillor Bedford.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same. I think it happened on the Ongar sites, where it wasn't so much the right of easement, it's a case of most of the residents there had put back garden gates in, which allowed them access straight into the car parking area, where they had no right over that land, and I think the council took that away. But in saying that, there were one or two residents that actually had garage doors built into the fences that went into their own gardens, and we did whatever we could to ensure that those people maintain the garages, and they're still there. In fact, the fences have been totally replaced around the edge of the council site. So it was a good compromise in the end, and we can't please everybody all the time, and we do have to get on with our building process.
Thank you, and thanks, Councillor Bedford, for those comments. I think it comes to a kind of point of negotiation and discussion, and trying to reach the best outcome for everyone in the situation, and obviously a lot of varied situations as well. If no one has any more comments on item number 7, are we happy to agree the recommendations within the report? Brilliant. And then any other business, which I don't believe we have any.
No other business, Chairman.
And then closing the meeting. Thank you everyone for attending.